Iran is at the center of modern history's maelstrom. Uprisings, nuclear threats, secret alliances, religious conflicts. But what's astonishing is, all of this was written down thousands of years ago. Not in CIA reports, not in UN documents, but in the Bible. Its name wasn't Iran, but an older, more sacred name, Persia. From the very first pages of the Bible to the final visions, Persia appears as a chosen nation, then judged, then promised restoration. A trajectory of destiny unmatched by any other nation. The question is no longer, where's Iran going? But rather, is Iran fulfilling the destiny written before the dawn of creation? After the Great Flood, the world was reborn through Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. From them, nations formed, spreading across the lands. But 2 names, buried deep in the ancestral map of Genesis, would become the foundation for modern-day Iran. Madai, descendant of Japheth, ancestor of the Medes, mountain warriors from northern Iran, and Elam, son of Shem, ancestor of the Elamites living in the fertile plains to the south, near the Persian Gulf. These are the bloodlines that created Persia. The Bible records 4 kings from the east, including Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, marched to invade the land of Canaan, where Abraham lived. They plundered cities, took people captive, including Lot, Abraham's nephew. At that time, with only 318 loyal servants, Abraham went by night, attacked and defeated the 4 mighty kings of the east. A militarily illogical victory, but one with a metaphysical message. No matter what power rises from the east, if it opposes God's chosen lineage, it will fail. Media and Elam did not disappear. They grew, merged, and intertwined. In the shadow of great empires, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, a new power gradually formed, Persia. It was from the cold mountains of Media and the valleys of Elam that a nation was being shaped, not just by history, but by the intervention of the Most High. It's no coincidence that prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and especially Daniel, all prophesied about a pagan king anointed by God. His name was mentioned more than 150 years before he was born. Cyrus, the Persian conqueror. He didn't just defeat Babylon. He didn't just rule the world at that time, but he was also used as a tool to restore the people of Israel, allowing them to return and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. Persia, once the scepter of judgment and the key that opened salvation. But that was just the beginning. Babylon, the most glorious empire of its time, was where Daniel, a young Jewish exile, lived in the heart of pagan greatness, and right at the center of power opposing God. A dream appeared that changed history. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, dreamt of a colossal statue. Its head was of gold, its chest of silver, its belly of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. No one could interpret it, but God, through Daniel, revealed a mystery not meant for humankind. You, O king, are the head of gold. But after you, another kingdom, inferior to yours, will arise. That was Persia. Not just one kingdom, but 2 arms, Media and Persia, combined into a single body. 2 arms, but one arm would be stronger. Persia would rise and dominate the alliance. And then, the prophecy began to be fulfilled. In a chaotic night, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, King Belshazzar, held a lavish feast. He took the holy vessels that had been plundered from the temple of Israel to drink wine and praise idols of gold, silver, stone, and wood. As the cheers rang out, an unseen hand appeared, writing strange words on the wall. Mean, tekel, upharsin. Your kingdom has been weighed on the heavenly scales and found wanting. Your kingdom will be divided and given to the Medes and Persians. That night, Cyrus, the young Persian king, executed an unprecedented tactic. He diverted the Euphrates River, dried up its bed, and entered the heart of Babylon before the city gates could be locked. No blood was shed, no fortress needed, because God himself opened the door. The prophecy was fulfilled, not a single detail missed. Those who once lived in captivity now walk in freedom, because God's word is true. Cyrus, the pagan king whom the prophet Isaiah had mentioned 150 years before his birth, issued a decree for the people of Israel to return home, rebuild Jerusalem, and reconstruct the temple. Persia, a pagan empire, once again became an instrument for the restoration of true worship. The question is, why? Why was a pagan superpower chosen? Why was Persia used, while other empires were judged? After that, God gave Daniel another vision. From the sea rose 4 beasts, symbolizing 4 kingdoms. And the second beast was a giant bear, standing on one side, with 3 ribs in its mouth. A voice commanded, "Arise and devour much flesh." That bear was Media, Persia, an empire with 2 sides, but one would dominate. Persia would swallow 3 kingdoms, Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. Each rib was a victory. When Cambyses II, Cyrus's son, ascended the throne, he completed the vision. Persia crossed the Sinai Desert, defeated the Egyptian pharaoh, ending the influence of one of the world's oldest civilizations. From India to Ethiopia, from the Black Sea to the Arabian Desert, Persia became the largest empire in human history up to that point. But Daniel knew it wouldn't last, because the dream didn't stop there. A goat, rushing from the west like the wind, with a single horn, attacked a bear, struck it down, and trampled it. That goat was Greece, under Alexander the Great, who would end Persia's glory in a mere historical blink. Persia, the one who helped rebuild the temple, would also be overthrown. But Iran's destiny doesn't end there. When Babylon was forgotten, when Cyrus had died, and when the temple in Jerusalem had begun to be rebuilt, another storm arose from the very heart of Persia. In Susa, the empire's magnificent capital, King Cyrus held an unprecedented feast. In his pride, he demanded Queen Vashti display her beauty before all the people. She refused. Her disobedience, in front of the entire empire, left the queen's throne empty. A decree was issued: search for beautiful maidens throughout the kingdom, to choose one to be the new queen of Persia. An unknown Jewish girl was brought to the palace, given a new name, Esther. No one knew she was an Israelite. No one knew she was of the exiled lineage. But God knew. In the shadows, another person rose, Haman of Amalekite blood, an enemy of Israel since the time of Moses. Haman didn't just want to kill one person. He wanted to destroy an entire nation. Facing a death sentence, Esther had to choose: remain silent and live, or speak up and die. I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. And she entered, uninvited, facing the law of death. But the king extended his hand, and the scepter was raised. A single woman, in the midst of a great empire, became the instrument of salvation for an entire people. At the feast, Esther said, "If we had merely been sold as slaves, I would have kept silent. But there is one who plots to destroy my entire people. Who is he? It is Haman." The gallows Haman had built for Mordecai, the Jew, was where he himself was hanged. A new decree was issued. The people of Israel throughout the empire were allowed to defend themselves, and they lived. Persia, once intending to destroy God's people, became their stronghold of salvation. But then, Persia gradually faded into the shadows of history. Centuries passed. Empires took turns ruling. Then one night, in the east, the Magi appeared. They were not kings. They were scholars, priests, astronomers of the old Persian Empire. And they carried ancient scrolls of a prisoner who once lived in the Babylonian court, Daniel. They saw a star, and they knew that child was king. Persia, once again, became the first place to recognize the Messiah when he was born. Not the priests in Jerusalem, but those from the land of Madai and Elam. And now, to the present day, Iran is once again the focal point. Tension, threats, dark alliances, declarations against Israel. But is it just politics, or is it a pre-written destiny? Gog and Magog will come up against my people Israel. With you are Persia, Cush, and Put. Ezekiel 38. Persia, now Iran, will be part of the final alliance that rises up against Israel, and will be judged by the Lord. The final battle will come. Fire from heaven, earthquakes, swords in the darkness. Persia will pay the price for siding with the darkness. I will break the bow of Elam, its strength. But in the latter days, I will restore the fortunes of Elam. A promise amidst judgment. There is still a crack in the wall of destiny, an opportunity for restoration, not because Persia deserves it, but because grace is still available for those who return. Final scene: nations advancing towards Jerusalem, horizon glowing. In the latter days, nations will stream to the mountain of the Lord in Jerusalem to worship the King. And perhaps among those nations will be Elam, an empire that once saved Israel, once opposed Israel, and then was restored with Israel. Because history does not end with judgment, but with the glory of the Almighty.